Every 40 seconds, someone, somewhere in the world, dies by suicide. By the time this video ends, dozens of people will have made that decision. Every year, more than 700,000 lives disappear this way. Millions more attempt it. And behind every statistic is a question that almost nobody dares to ask out loud. Because no one posts an Instagram story saying, "Today I seriously thought about ending my life." They post photos, they laugh, they go to work, they answer messages with, "I'm fine." They sit beside friends, they celebrate birthdays, they make plans for next month. Then, one day, they're gone. Perhaps the cruelest part of suicide isn't death itself. It's the silence that always comes before it. How many people do you know who laugh the loudest but return home to an apartment that feels like a prison? How many wake up every morning not because they want another day, but because the alarm clock leaves them no alternative? How many continue breathing simply because everyone expects them to? Most of them will never admit it. Neither will you. Because saying, "I don't know if I want to keep living," is still one of society's last unforgivable confessions. Yet this question has haunted humanity for thousands of years. Albert Camus opened the myth of Sisyphus with words that still echo like a gunshot across modern philosophy. There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Not God, not morality, not free will, not the soul. Before asking whether life has a purpose, we must first ask whether life deserves to continue at all. If existence has no objective meaning, why remain alive? This isn't merely a psychological question. It's a philosophical one, a spiritual one, a biological one, a historical one. It has divided saints and atheists, mystics and scientists, pessimists and optimists. Augustine condemned suicide as rebellion against God. David Hume defended the individual's right to question life itself. Schopenhauer saw suffering as the very fabric of existence. Nietzsche demanded that we affirm life despite its cruelty. Cioran spent decades writing about suicide without ever embracing it. Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz and insisted that meaning could still be found even in unimaginable suffering. Each of them looked into the same abyss. None of them saw exactly the same thing. In this video, we'll descend into that abyss together. We'll explore the darkest arguments ever written about existence, suffering, freedom, God, meaning, and despair. We'll confront uncomfortable realities, unsettling philosophies, and questions that civilization has spent centuries trying to avoid. This is not an argument in favor of suicide. It is an attempt to understand why the question exists at all. Because this video is not really about death. It's about the terrifying mystery of what keeps a human being alive, even after they've stopped believing life has any meaning. In 1890, the French sociologist Emil Durkheim began asking a question that seemed almost impossible. How could people living in prosperous countries, surrounded by family, religion, and opportunity, still choose to end their own lives? Most believed suicide was purely personal, the result of madness or moral weakness. Durkheim discovered something far more disturbing. Suicide follows patterns. When entire societies become disconnected, isolated, or lose the values that once held them together, suicide rates rise with remarkable consistency. It isn't simply an individual tragedy. It is often the symptom of a civilization beginning to fracture. That alone should unsettle us, because it suggests that sometimes the person who dies is not the only thing that has collapsed. Perhaps society failed first, yet statistics can only describe how often people die. They cannot explain why someone reaches the point where death begins to look reasonable. That question has haunted philosophers for centuries. Few confronted it more honestly than Emil Cioran. Unlike many thinkers who discussed suicide from a safe intellectual distance, Cioran lived with the idea almost every day of his adult life. He once wrote, "Without the idea of suicide, I would have surely killed myself." At first, the sentence sounds absurd. Then it becomes terrifying. For Cioran, suicide was not simply an action. It was a possibility, a door that remained permanently unlocked. Oddly enough, knowing it existed made life bearable. The freedom to leave became one of the reasons he stayed. He spent more than 80 years writing about despair, futility, exhaustion, and the unbearable weight of consciousness. Yet he never crossed that final threshold. He wrote instead. Perhaps writing became another way of postponing the verdict. Another philosopher pushed the argument even further. The Norwegian thinker Peter Wessel Zapffe believed humanity had made a catastrophic evolutionary mistake. Animals suffer. They flee predators. They starve. They die. However, they do not spend sleepless nights wondering why any of it matters. Human beings do. According to Zapffe, consciousness exceeded what nature had prepared us to endure. We became intelligent enough to understand our own mortality, yet powerless to escape it. Every civilization, religion, political ideology, and personal ambition became, in his eyes, elaborate psychological shelters built to protect us from this unbearable realization. Remove those shelters, and many people find themselves staring directly into an abyss that was always there. Then came Philipp Mainlander, perhaps the darkest philosopher of the 19th century. His conclusion was almost unimaginable. He believed existence itself was moving toward extinction. The universe, he argued, was not expanding toward greater life. It was slowly exhausting itself. Everything that exists is already traveling toward disappearance. Human beings are simply aware of the journey. The unsettling part is that Mainlander wasn't celebrating death. He believed death was woven into reality long before any individual was born. Against voices like these, Albert Camus offered an unexpected challenge. He refused to deny the abyss. He refused to invent comforting illusions. Still, he rejected the conclusion that suicide was the logical answer. For Camus, the moment we recognize life's apparent meaninglessness is not the end of philosophy. It is where philosophy truly begins. Yet centuries before any of these thinkers, St. Augustine had already reached the opposite conclusion. Human life, he argued, is never our possession. It is entrusted to us. To take it away is not an act of freedom, but a rejection of the one who gave it. And there, the deepest conflict finally emerges. Is life something we own, or something we have merely borrowed? The answer to that question changes everything. It determines whether suicide becomes an act of liberation, or the greatest illusion a suffering mind can ever believe. Every Sunday, billions of people around the world pray for the same destination, a place without grief, without disease, without injustice, without aging, without funerals, a kingdom where every wound is healed and every tear finally disappears. They call it heaven. Now comes a question that many believers have thought about, although very few dare to say it aloud. If heaven is infinitely better than earth, why is trying to reach it too soon considered one of the greatest sins imaginable? For centuries, this paradox has unsettled philosophers, theologians, and ordinary believers alike. It sounds almost contradictory. The destination is perfect. The journey is painful. Yet shortening the journey becomes forbidden. St. Augustine confronted this dilemma long before modern psychology ever existed. To him, life was never private property. It belonged to God. Human beings could cultivate it, cherish it, even waste it, though they could never claim ownership over it. Ending one's own life was not simply self-destruction. It was the rejection of divine authority itself. Several centuries later, Thomas Aquinas refined that argument. He claimed suicide violated 3 relationships simultaneously: the relationship with oneself, the relationship with society, and the relationship with God, the author of existence. Within that framework, suffering does not automatically justify escape. Instead, suffering becomes part of a mystery that human reason cannot fully comprehend. Yet history has always been uncomfortable with unanswered suffering. The Book of Job remains one of the oldest examples. A righteous man loses his children, his wealth, his health, nearly everything that gave his life structure. His friends insist he must have deserved it. Job refuses their explanations. Instead, he demands answers from God. None arrive in the form he expects. The storm speaks. The questions remain. That story has endured for thousands of years because it reflects an experience countless people recognize. Sometimes faith survives without certainty. Sometimes it survives despite certainty. Then there is Ecclesiastes, perhaps the Bible's most unsettling book. Its author surveys wealth, pleasure, knowledge, ambition, and power before reaching a devastating conclusion. Meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Those words sound astonishingly close to existential philosophy, despite being written more than 2,000 years earlier. Even within Scripture, certainty is far less common than many imagine. Centuries later, the Spanish mystic Saint John of the Cross described what he called the dark night of the soul. Not doubt, not disbelief, something far more frightening. The experience of searching for God and finding only apparent absence. Many assume faith eliminates despair. History tells another story. Some of the deepest spiritual lives were also marked by profound inner desolation. Even Mother Teresa, according to her published letters, spent decades feeling abandoned by the God she devoted her entire life to serving. She continued nevertheless, not because the answers returned, because commitment remained after certainty had vanished. This transforms the entire discussion. Perhaps the opposite of suicide is not happiness. Perhaps it is endurance, not the passive endurance of someone waiting for life to improve. Rather, the deliberate endurance of someone who continues walking without being able to see the destination. Believers call that faith. Existentialists may call it courage. The names differ. The experience often looks remarkably similar. And this raises another question that refuses to disappear. If suffering can deepen faith, can it also destroy it? That is where religion, philosophy, and psychology stop walking together. From this point onward, each offers a radically different answer to the same human cry. Why should I keep living when every certainty has already fallen apart? In 2018, a 104-year-old Australian scientist named David Goodall traveled more than 10,000 miles to Switzerland. He wasn't terminally ill. He wasn't losing his memory. He wasn't acting on impulse. He simply believed his life had reached its natural conclusion. Australian law prohibited physician-assisted dying under his circumstances. Swiss law did not. On the morning of his death, surrounded by friends, he listened to Beethoven's Ode to Joy, answered a few final questions, and calmly drank the medication that ended his life. His last public words were remarkably ordinary. This is taking a long time. The story sparked outrage across the world. Some called it dignity. Others called it suicide. Many called it murder. Yet almost everyone overlooked the deeper question. Who owns a human life once it has begun? Governments, religions, families, or the individual living it? Few philosophers challenged this question more directly than David Hume. In the 18th century, merely defending suicide could destroy a person's reputation. Nevertheless, Hume wrote one of philosophy's most controversial essays, Of Suicide, refusing to treat the subject as forbidden. His reasoning was unsettlingly simple. If human beings are allowed to make decisions about nearly every aspect of their existence, why should the final decision be placed beyond moral discussion? He rejected the claim that suicide violated nature. Nature itself destroys life every second. Earthquakes bury cities. Viruses spread without mercy. Stars collapse. Entire species disappear. Death has never been unnatural. Neither did Hume accept the argument that suicide always harms society. A life reduced to unbearable suffering, he argued, does not automatically become more valuable merely because others insist it continue. For Hume, morality should not be built upon fear. It should be built upon reason. Then came Arthur Schopenhauer, who looked at the same problem from an entirely different direction. He agreed that existence is saturated with suffering. Yet he rejected suicide as a genuine solution. His argument remains surprisingly original. According to Schopenhauer, the person who ends their life is not rejecting the will to live. Quite the opposite. They are expressing it. The desire to escape pain is still a desire, still an act of willing. In his philosophy, the deepest liberation does not come from destroying the body. It comes from quieting the endless hunger that drives the mind from one desire to the next. Pleasure fades. Success fades. Even grief eventually changes shape. Desire, however, keeps inventing new reasons to remain dissatisfied. Then Nietzsche arrived like a storm moving in the opposite direction. He despised philosophies that glorified resignation. He admired strength, creation, transformation. Although he spoke of what he called the free death, he never presented suicide as an escape from suffering. For Nietzsche, escaping pain meant allowing suffering to dictate the final chapter of one's existence. Real freedom demanded something far more difficult: to shape one's life so completely that death became the final expression of authorship rather than defeat. Three philosophers. Three radically different conclusions. Hume asks whether we possess the right. Schopenhauer questions whether the act accomplishes what we imagine. Nietzsche asks whether the decision comes from strength or surrender. Centuries later, the debate remains unresolved. Modern medicine can extend life beyond what previous generations thought possible. Law can authorize death under carefully defined conditions. Religion can forbid it. Philosophy can analyze it. Yet none of them can answer the question that exists inside a single human mind at 3 o'clock in the morning. When suffering becomes greater than hope, who, if anyone, has the authority to decide that another sunrise is still worth seeing? That question leads us away from ethics and towards something even more intimate. Not death itself. The human mind that slowly becomes convinced it no longer belongs among the living. In September 2022, researchers published one of the largest studies ever conducted on loneliness. More than 2.2 million people were included. The conclusion was unsettling. Chronic loneliness doesn't merely increase the risk of depression. It significantly raises the risk of premature death, cardiovascular disease, dementia, and suicide. In other words, the human brain reacts to prolonged isolation almost as if it were physical injury. That should force us to reconsider one of the oldest assumptions about suicide. Perhaps people do not die because they have stopped loving life. Perhaps they die after believing that life has stopped loving them. The distinction changes everything. For decades, psychologists searched for a single explanation: mental illness, trauma, genetics, economic hardship. Each contributes something to the picture. None explains the whole landscape. The Austrian psychiatrist Viktor Frankl witnessed this firsthand inside Auschwitz. He watched prisoners die from starvation, disease, exhaustion, random executions. Yet he also noticed something that refused to fit any predictable pattern. Some survived circumstances that should have destroyed them. Others collapsed long before their bodies gave out. The difference, he believed, was rarely physical strength. It was meaning. Frankl never claimed that purpose eliminates suffering. His experience taught him something almost opposite. Suffering without meaning crushes the human spirit. Suffering connected to purpose becomes, at least sometimes, bearable. That idea would later become the foundation of logotherapy, a form of psychotherapy built upon a simple premise. Human beings are driven less by pleasure than by significance. Take away comfort, and many continue. Take away meaning, and even comfort begins to feel empty. Psychiatrist Irvin Yalom reached a similar conclusion through decades of clinical practice. He argued that many people who express a desire to die are not pursuing death itself. They are trying to escape an existence that has become psychologically uninhabitable. Like someone trapped inside a house consumed by smoke, they run toward the nearest exit. The destination matters less than escaping the fire. Carl Jung approached the problem from another direction. He believed every human being carries regions of the psyche that remain hidden, rejected, or feared. He called this the shadow. The more a person denies fear, grief, anger, or despair, the stronger those buried forces become. Ignored emotions do not disappear. They gather pressure beneath the surface, much like tectonic plates beneath the ocean. For years, nothing appears to move. Then, without warning, the entire landscape changes. Modern neuroscience offers a remarkably similar image. Brain scans reveal that severe depression alters the way people process memory, reward, and even the future itself. Someone experiencing profound depression often does not simply feel hopeless. Their brain begins predicting hopelessness as though it were an objective fact. Imagine wearing glasses that slowly darken every window in your house. Eventually, you stop believing the problem is the glass. You become convinced the sun itself has disappeared. Perhaps this explains why advice like "think positive" so often fails. It asks a drowning person to admire the weather. What saves people is rarely a slogan. More often, it is connection, a conversation, a hand that remains extended after everyone else has walked away. A reason, however fragile, to postpone the final decision. Perhaps that is why the deepest question is no longer philosophical, nor theological. It becomes profoundly human. What happens when someone loses not only hope, but also the ability to imagine that hope could ever return? That is the place where philosophy reaches its limit. From there, only one question remains. Can a life without meaning discover meaning again? Or must meaning always come from somewhere beyond ourselves? More than 2,000 years of philosophy have produced astonishing disagreements about almost everything. God, morality, freedom, justice, truth. Yet one question has survived every civilization, every religion, every scientific revolution, and every political ideology. Is life worth continuing? No one has answered it in a way that ended the debate. Not Plato, not Augustine, not Nietzsche, not Camus, not science, not religion. Each generation inherits the same question, as though it were an old scar passed from one century to the next. Perhaps that alone tells us something. Some questions are not meant to disappear. They are meant to accompany us. Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy knew this better than most. He possessed everything that modern society promises will bring fulfillment: wealth, international recognition, a loving family, influence. His novels transformed literature forever. Yet, in a confession, he admitted something almost unbelievable. He began hiding ropes from himself. He avoided carrying firearms. Not because he feared death, because he feared what his own mind might eventually decide. Then came the realization that changed his life. Logic alone could not justify existence. Reason could explain how people lived. It could never explain why they should. Tolstoy eventually found his answer in faith, although not the triumphant certainty many imagine. Instead, he discovered humility, the willingness to continue without possessing every answer. His conclusion was deeply personal. It was not proof, it was a decision. This is where philosophy reaches one of its strangest discoveries. Meaning is rarely uncovered like buried treasure. Far more often, it is constructed piece by piece through responsibility, relationships, sacrifice, and time. Viktor Frankl arrived at a remarkably similar conclusion after surviving Auschwitz. He never claimed suffering was noble, nor did he argue that pain automatically makes people stronger. Instead, he observed something profoundly human. People can survive extraordinary suffering when they can still identify a reason to take one more step. Sometimes that reason is another person, sometimes unfinished work, sometimes love, sometimes curiosity about tomorrow. The reason itself matters less than the fact that it exists. Even Friedrich Nietzsche, so often misunderstood as a philosopher of destruction, ultimately pointed toward creation. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Notice what he does not say. He does not promise happiness. He does not promise justice. He does not promise that life will become easier. He simply suggests that purpose changes the weight we are capable of carrying. Perhaps that is the thread connecting thinkers who otherwise disagree about nearly everything. Camus refuses surrender. Frankl searches for meaning. Tolstoy embraces faith. Nietzsche demands self-creation. Different roads, a surprisingly similar destination. Life asks something of us before it explains itself. Perhaps this is why the question, why keep living, can never receive a universal answer. The answer cannot be borrowed. It cannot be inherited. It cannot be memorized from a book. Every human being must confront it personally. That responsibility is terrifying. It is also what makes freedom meaningful. In the end, existence may resemble standing at the edge of an immense ocean before sunrise. The horizon reveals almost nothing. You cannot see the opposite shore. You cannot predict every storm. Still, the light arrives gradually, revealing only enough water for the next few miles. Perhaps meaning works the same way. Not as a destination visible from the beginning. Rather, as something that appears only after we choose to keep moving. And maybe that is the oldest lesson hidden beneath every philosophy explored in this video. Life rarely begins with an answer. More often, it begins with the courage to remain long enough for the next question. If this video made you think, then it has already accomplished its purpose. Watching until the end, leaving a like and sharing it with someone else already helps this channel more than you might realize. If you'd like to go even further, consider becoming a channel member. You'll unlock 100+ exclusive videos, early access, and content created especially for members. And if this discussion truly meant something to you, you can also support the channel through super thanks. Every contribution helps keep these conversations alive and allows us to create even deeper content. Thank you for being here. It genuinely means more than you know.